preview's going. We can talk while the preview's going. Thankfully, our audio is not going through right now, I think. No, it is. They can hear me. Hey, what's up, guys? A little crazy start to the stream today. You heard us just getting set up here. Sometimes we have our little last-minute technical issues, but no worries. I see the chat's already active here. We got John H. Kingston III as usual. And I've got some crazy trippy visuals and some nice chill music going on behind me. So yeah, here we are again for another 343 TV session. This is, it's always Techno Saturdays, and obviously I am John Selway. And yeah, I'm glad to be back here and hang out with you guys. We had a really fun time last week with Christian Smith. That was a good session, and hopefully we're going to have him back one of these days. Actually, I think Christian and I are going to start doing some streaming separately, you know, not interfering with this schedule, so we can kind of come on whenever we come on. Hopefully you guys will follow us for that. I'll keep you posted on what's happening. So, as mentioned, this is 343 TV. We do this every day right around the same time, 1 o'clock. Saturday's my day. 343 Labs is our music production school. We are based in New York and Berlin. We do a lot of online classes and a few in-person classes. And, you know, we do Ableton Live and Logic. We do songwriting and mixing, mastering. I do synthesis and sound design. And, you know, we've been doing this stream here to, like, just sort of reach out and grow our community and get, you know, share what we do. And, you know, I don't know, I'm starting to say this almost every time, like Saturdays coming on here and streaming with everybody is one of the highlights of my week. So thanks for being here. Who else is here in the stream today? Enigmatic Onion is back. Regine, hey, what's up? And a whole bunch of new names here. That's really nice. Simple Sam, I think you're a relatively new name here. Glad to see you back around. And Regina's asking me if I'm using OBS for the trippy, cool, psychedelic background. Well, I'm using OBS as usual to do the streaming and to combine all my sources and the audio and put the chat in here and everything. This background actually is an interesting kind of piece of visual and musical work from my guest today, Noah Pred. He's a producer I've known about for a long time. He is a certified Ableton Live instructor. He does a lot of really great stuff, and he is now, you know, with us. He is a now fellow 343 Labs instructor based in Berlin. And I've been wanting to bring on some of our newer people with 343 that aren't streaming regularly, like some of us are, and sort of including them in this fun game that we're playing. So I was glad to have Noah step in for today. We can listen to a little bit of his music and talk about what he's doing, and then I don't know, we'll see where it goes. As you know, this is the Techno Friends episode, and this is where I bring people in and just kind of hang out and talk, and you know, we might get into a little bit of production stuff, but generally it's pretty easygoing and conversational. So without further ado, here's our friend Noah Pred. How's it going?
Hey everybody. I'm doing good. Hey John, thanks for having me on. You're a legend, man. I've been a big fan for a while. In fact, just about a year ago, the last club night I DJ'd was like an electro night. I just started with some friends here. And for anybody on the stream looking for a pretty incredible electro track, be sure to check out John's Brainchild record. That track is bonkers. It's bananas, and people went bananas. It's a good time.
Thanks. I'm glad to hear that story. I haven't been as active in like being out at, you know, DJing and being at clubs. I mean, okay, obviously before our current situation we're all in, but you know, I never really got to. I just make music sort of mostly in isolation. Like I'll make a track, and I don't know necessarily if people are playing it out, and so it's really nice to hear that you're into that.
No, it's so crazy when you release a piece of music going to meet people you'll never meet. It's going to get played in rooms you'll never see. I mean, it just goes and lives its own life. But yeah, happy to share that story, and hopefully there's a chance to get back to that kind of fun sooner than later. But meanwhile, it's good to be here with you today.
Great. I'm just checking the chat here to see who else is around. Yeah, Simple Sam is, I noticed he came in and was enthusiastic, so I just wanted to call him out there. And Max is in here as well. What's up, Max? Thanks. I'm glad you like the background. But actually, you should say thanks to this guy, because this is actually from a live stream that you did, right? Can you tell us a little bit about the project that this visual is from?
Yeah,
and the sound, actually, the sound in the intro was the music from the stream.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear that on my end, but cool. No, that's great. Yeah, so I've been developing these generative MIDI sequencers and instruments in Max for Live for the last couple of years, and I'm aiming to finally release them this year. But like the use case for them is pretty expansive. Like, you kind of can set these rules and let them just run. So I got really into this idea of sort of world building with them.
Cool.
And getting out of the restrictions of like song production or whatever. It's a completely different animal. And I started working with some Max for Live jitter programming to have some responsive visuals in there as well. And so, yeah, during my winter break from teaching, I kind of got the idea to do this 9-hour generative ambient audio visual live stream. And I wasn't sure if I was going to have time to do it, but I just sort of crunched one weekend and put it together. And and there it is. It kind of also served as like a stress test for the devices to make sure that they could run for the full 9 hours without crashing or anything. So that was nice to see. But yeah, there's an accelerated version of it as well for people that don't have 9 hours to let the thing evolve. And the condensed version I also threw up on Bandcamp. So it turned into kind of an ambient album in a way.
Yeah, it's really nice. I had it on when I was getting set up last night and this morning. It was just sort of chilling out here in my living room listening to that. It's a really nice, I mean, it's just so ambient, and the visuals, it's not, one thing I like about it is, you can see it as reacting to the music, but it's not like in your face, like exaggerated, or like, it's not trying too hard to react. It's subtle, and it fits the music really, really well.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I'm really interested in this concept of synesthetics, of like, sound and color that are somewhat like somehow inextricably linked to one another and almost kind of form a language together greater than either one could be on its own. I'm just kind of dipping my toes in the water and seeing what's possible, and consider myself very much a beginner in these realms. But yeah, it's exciting to have a new area of interest like that, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. I was thinking, we had our sort of our pre-show discussion, and you were talking about these devices you're working on, and we were trying to get you set up to like share your screen, and I should have had you. That didn't work out. We have our technical limitations with audio and video coming from one country to another one. A quarter of the way around the planet or whatever. I should have asked you to like send me one so we could show it. Maybe we can do that another time when you have it more sort of ready to go.
Yeah, I think as it becomes more official, I'd love to come back on and do a bit of maybe something kind of like an interactive walkthrough of some of them. That'd be fun. But yeah, I don't think it's time quite yet anyway.
Good. Okay. Yeah, well, I'll look forward to that. I'm into kind of a little bit of generative stuff here and there. And actually, I mentioned earlier, I was with you, I was playing around with these new Max for Live devices, the Inspired by Nature ones I did a stream on recently in Live 11. And there's a bit of, they're not fully generative in terms of like composition, but in terms of sound design and processing, they're kind of generative. And I don't know, I kind of like that. We might open this up a little bit later, because there's some other stuff that you're doing in terms of like, putting, making devices, designing racks for live. You've got kind of a bunch of really interesting stuff that we're going to take a look at in a little bit. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been building these racks, these packs, sort of call them toolkits of racks for live, most of which are MIDI and audio effect racks. And the MIDI effect racks are kind of like the first, in a way, they're generative, especially the randomizable arpeggiator oriented ones. And yeah, so been making those available through a company I run with your buddy,
Right.
Tim
Xavier.
Yeah, I think he's been on your stream before, perhaps. And yeah, so we've been releasing those through this company, Manifest Audio, which is where the Max devices will eventually be released as well. And yeah, so we could take a look at some of those. I wanted to go back and comment on Dylan's brilliant work with the Inspired by Nature stuff. I mean, I think those Max devices are, yeah, brilliantly executed, and the concept is so ambitious. And to see those ideas translated so effectively, it's interesting because the devices almost become like a bit of a educational tool in a way, because then people are learning about, electrical fields and magnetic fields and current flow and all these kinds of things that they might never think about, let alone associate with music in any way. So I think it's quite brilliant what they've done there, and doing generative stuff in general. Nature is obviously an influence.
Definitely.
On all that sort of stuff, right?
I agree. And then I that's one of the things I like about physical modeling synthesis is you're thinking about sound in a tangible, physical way, like how objects vibrate and react to vibrations, which is a different way of thinking about making sound than you're like a subtractive synthesizer. That's something that I like to go into when we do our course with synthesis and sound design for producers.
Especially with corpus and collision, and the way you can bend and warp the rules of physics, and say, okay, I'm going to use the behavior of this surface, but combine it in a shape it would never be found in, and excite it in a way that wouldn't work in the real world. And then you get these totally,
definitely that breaking the model,
otherworldly sounds. Yeah.
Who was the person that said that? I want to say John Margulies came. That's the first person I heard the idea of breaking the model in terms of physical modeling synthesis. We had a lesson back at Dubspot that he wrote in the Ableton Live course. It was called Breaking the Model, and that's I've carried that with me.
Metaphysical modeling.
There you go.
Yeah,
I knew we were going to nerd out and get deep today, guys.
This is so. It didn't take long, my friend. It didn't take long. I hope everybody can.
No, it's fine. It's like
can hang.
That's what we're doing. We're all hanging. I want to pause just for a moment and remind everybody that we do giveaways usually every week, and this week we are providing the prize that you can enter. It's a 343 Pro session. Periodically we bring in artists that are making things happen and having them come in and do workshops, and it's definitely a good opportunity to get close into like the creative process and the workflow for some of these artists. So definitely check that out. There's a link in the chat. And as usual, I will announce the winner. By the end of the show, we'll announce the winner and call them out and say congratulations and give them a round of applause. Man, I'm a nerd sometimes. Okay. I've got my family, I've got kids, and then my sense of humor, I don't know what happened. I'm like such a dad joke person now. I do goofy things to embarrass my children in public.
It's the highest form of humor, some might argue.
Sure, why not? I think I just wanted to point out, Regine asked about that Brainchild track, where she could get that, and I did copy the link into the chat, but I think sometimes YouTube blocks HTML or web links and things like that. So if that didn't come up, it's on my label, Serotonin Records, SCROTONIN. You can find that on Bandcamp, and if you just search for Selway Brainchild Bandcamp, you'll find it. It'll pop up first thing. So that's where you can get it. So thank you for asking. And I also want to shout out a very important name here. I want to big him up a little bit. Peter Kern is with us today. And if you don't know, Peter Kern does create digital music. And actually, is it just create digital music? It's like it's create digital music, and you do stuff about video as well. He covers so much cool stuff. So really happy to see him here today. Thanks for stopping by. And he says, I'm lost, nerds. Look who you pot calling the kettle black. Jeez.
Yeah, right.
I think what's really messing me up today is this visual. This is like so before we get like completely pulled into the vortex here, let's give ourselves something to focus on and listen to a little bit of music. So, we've been kind of just talking about stuff here, introducing Noah and, some of the conceptual stuff that we're interested and some things that we're into and we're going to look at today. But also, we're all about making music, right? And so let's check out some of Noah's work. I've got a couple of tracks set up here in Ableton Live, just to preview and listen to. And these are from an album you sent me, Arcologies.
Yeah, I just threw this up on Bandcamp last December, which already seems like a million years ago somehow. But yeah, so this is, essentially the idea behind the album was it was a series of experiments that resulted from constructing these generative Macs for live devices. And, so they feature prominently. It's not exclusively done with them, but there are some primary components you'll notice that are probably came from them. Yeah.
I'm going to start playing and have a listen. And
so yeah, the like atmospheric fluttery stuff is I like to grab reverb send or something with some dynamics to it, and then just captures an audio clip, usually transpose it up and throw a texture warp mode on there with some strong flux, and you get these kind of grain cloud things happening.
I like grain clouds. We should talk about that. Like, what do we mean by grain cloud?
So, you want me to
why
go
not?
for the...
No, because, we're doing this to hang out and talk about music and talk about what we do. But, we're a school, right? 343 Labs is a school, and we are music instructors. And it makes sense for us to, like, talk about what these things mean. There's a lot of people here that are maybe new. So it's good to, like, kind of take some of these advanced concepts and break them down a little bit in a musical context.
Yeah, well, so when you see the term granular synthesis or granular resynthesis, what that refers to is taking a piece of audio and taking tiny slices of that audio file, which get referred to as grains or particles, and then redistributing them according to a variety of parameters, depending on how you're doing it. And if you kind of randomly spread those grains around, you get this kind of random ambient atmosphere that gets referred to as a grain cloud.
Good description. And it sounds like what you said. It sounds, granular processing sounds like, swirling grains of sound.
What's your favorite granular synthesis instrument or plugin?
Well, I've been thinking about that lately. I like the granular engine in Pigments, actually, from Arturia. It sounds really smooth.
I think that came in a newer version, and I haven't used it since they added that. But my favorite would probably be Quanta, I believe it's called, from Audio Damage.
That was my second mention.
Yeah, it's a pretty spectacular, and that's a good one to mention because it is specifically focused on granular synthesis. It's not like an option. That's what it does, and it does it extremely well with a number of advanced features that I haven't seen elsewhere.
Well, yeah, one thing, the idea of that plugin you're talking about, Quanta, it's not, a lot of granular synthesizers are samplers, and they're granulizing the audio from the sample, but Quanta also has an oscillator in it. So you're doing you're granulizing, chopping up into tiny little pieces the waveforms coming out of the oscillator, and that is also really awesome to have those textures
option too. Yeah. No, it's unique. I haven't seen a instrument with quite the same feature set. But yeah, so this track, the sort of like polyrhythmic sort of tom marimba dominant lead pattern there.
Sure.
That's all coming from one of the generative tools. And, you know, there's a back and forth. There's a conversation you have with these tools, right? So I set it up with certain rules. I wanted to produce rhythms within a certain range and generate notes within a certain scale. And then I get it to produce a bunch, and then I prune it and I take my favorite bits. So it's not just like pressing play and this thing does everything. It's a back and forth. It's dialing in the settings and then capturing the result and then editing and processing what's been captured.
That seems to be, that's kind of like the ideal workflow for, you can do fully generative music, which is constantly changing and evolving, and it can be, you know, randomly good, but then also occasionally randomly not good. And as a composer, yeah, you got to have a lot of space, but also, you know, getting using the generative tools to create a melody or a rhythm, it's going to go all over the place within your parameters. So the composition part is like the parameters you set that it generates within, but then it's still going to do random stuff or semi or pseudo random stuff. And that's the second part of the composer and arranger part of it, is to take all that generated material and then mine it for the good stuff.
Right.
And delete the stuff that didn't work and to make it fit your more traditional arrangement, I guess.
Right. Well, so by way of contrast, like the ambient piece you referenced, the visuals from which are still streaming away behind the DAW there, that was fully generative. Like I set the rules up and I automated a number of contours for it to follow over the course of the 9 hours. But within that, I just let it ride.
Sure.
But this one I really, you know, pruned it back. And so you take on this role that's a little bit more like a gardener, right? You decide what seeds you're going to plant. You decide where you're going to plant them. They're going to grow. It's going to be a certain variety of flower or vegetable or whatever, but you don't know exactly what it's going to look like till it sprouts up. And then maybe you have to prune it a little bit, or, you know, maybe some weeds come through. You got to prune those. I don't know.
Speaking of inspired by nature.
Clearly stretching the metaphor a little too far.
No, that's fine. We're having fun. Like, this is like, we're flowing today. We're just going with what goes and going with how it goes. Like, it's fine. I think when I put my little Instagram post up and I said, let's flow. That's what we should be doing. So say what you got to say.
Nice.
I'm doing, Max is calling, he keeps saying I'm doing the Selway. So y'all see me like, but if I'm feeling something, shuffle. I'm always like, yeah, I do this when I'm like dancing in my chair. Like, it's the Selway sway. Thanks, Max, for coming up with that one.
It's high praise on the tune if he's doing the shuffle.
Definitely. Yeah, no, this is the first track on the album. Let's actually move along a little bit and check out another one.
Sure.
And
but I mean, so more or less everything around that main generated component was all, you know, fully composed by me around it. But there's something really liberating about that process with the generative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's forced me to sort of recontextualize like my position as a quote unquote creator, you know, and to try and figure out what that role really means. And
that's interesting. That just reminded me of something. Speedy J has that Knob Twiddlers kind of podcast discussion stream that he does, and they were talking about setting up a process and having that be liberating. Like, you know, he was working, I'm sorry that I forget the name of the guest that was talking about this, because he said a lot of cool stuff. I'm gonna have to go back and check it out. But I think he was working with modular gear and creating systems, like setting up the limits within what the system does and then letting it go. And then have that be a freeing thing.
Yeah, that's the world building
that
approach
you can play
in a way. There's there's a researcher and professor, Marcus de Sautoy, who wrote a pretty interesting book on creativity. I think it's called The Creativity Code.
Okay.
And he talks about his definition of creativity, and there are many, but I thought it was interesting, is either exploring, combining, or transforming existing structures to create something new, right? And
right.
the key takeaway there that I would want to impart on my students is the existing structures part, right?
Definitely.
Like, we're standing on the shoulders of giants here. We're not, but I find like a lot of people have this concept of the creative person or the artist is like doing everything somehow, which actually is not really possible. Like, we're not inventing the musical scales. We're not inventing the technology that allows computers to run the software that we didn't design,
right.
Like all these things allow us to do incredible stuff. And you just have to appreciate that you're on the cusp of that wave of technological innovation, and what can you add to those existing structures in exploring or recombining, or maybe even transforming them in some way.
That sounds, absolutely. And it's pretty deep what we're talking about. And I think it's good that we're, kind of talking about this and sort of relating this to the music that we're listening to. And hopefully, everybody out there who's watching, hopefully you're following along with, our conversation and getting into it. Let's switch gears a little bit here. I've got a new track on.
This one, pretty minimal generativity in this one. I think the keyboard chord line is just a sequence I grabbed from one of my sequencers I built. So that was like a generative component. I might have moved some notes around, but This one's mostly just a sweet and happy little.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite tracks on the album, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It's got a twinge of that wistful euphoria we all need in our lives right now.
Wistful euphoria. It's funny. I like all kinds of techno, whether it's, dark and industrial and cold, or banging, or machine-like, or distorted or dirty, all the way to blissful euphoria. You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting to think about how, a genre, people refer to techno as a single genre, but it's so broad. There are so many like subdivisions of that. And this is just as techno to me as what you hear in a warehouse that was released on Drum Code Records. You know what I mean? Like they're all part of a continuum.
I couldn't agree more. And it's funny how the genre has sort of become like more and more pigeonholed over the years.
Sure.
I mean, what drew me to techno initially, like all those years ago, is it is in a way uniquely context-specific music. It's designed for very specific situations, but not.
Right.
But there's many flavors. There's a spectrum within that context, and to see that spectrum get so narrow with the sort of like more dominantly industrialized sounds that have become more strongly associated with techno in recent years has been a little. It's kind of pushed me in other directions, to be honest. Not to be like old man yelling at clouds or whatever, but I think there's definitely a time and a place for that super hardcore, raw, industrial techno sound. But as with many things in music, life, and art in general, impact, I think, is directly relative to contrast, right? Like,
definitely.
Dark is meaningless if there's not light, and vice versa. So if you are only playing that super industrial techno constantly, it kind of loses some of its power if there's nothing to contrast it with. Maybe
contrast,
actually.
That's like, anyone who's like starting out producing music, regardless of style, understanding and learning how to set up situations in your music to provide contrast is like, it's a super important, like, basic thing for everybody to grasp early on. Not just in terms of arrangement, like how it changes over time, one section to another, one verse to another, but within melodies, within rhythms, like the difference between something playing and something not playing, a sound and not a sound, the distance between intervals, using contrast in a detailed way makes for more sophisticated music in a way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it can even play into the sound design as well. Like,
right.
It's interesting with a certain lo-fi aesthetic where everything is super crunchy and crispy, and that's cool. But like, try having one or two sounds that are super crunchy and crispy contrasted with one or two sounds that are super clean and hi-fi,
right?
And see what you can tease out of the tension between that contrast, just as another take on it.
Oh, there I was trying to do a nice smooth fade out in my mouse. I need a MIDI controller for this. I don't have like a DJ like track playback situation for the stream. I'm always just kind of mousing around.
I thought you just wanted to get your
hardcore
shuffle on a little harder over there.
No, actually, I wanted to. Peter Kern says here in the chat, if you only knew the power of the dark side, Noah.
Oh,
it's a challenge.
Peter.
Actually,
Peter, we're gonna have to have a chat about that one.
I mean, there is something to be said for going out of your comfort zone and making music that's different than what you do naturally. I mean, I suppose you could be setting yourself up for frustration as well, but like, if you're into making deep melodic music, it might be an interesting exercise, especially when you're still learning, to do something that contrasts that. So maybe there should be like a Noah Pred, like banging, raving hard techno record, and it's going to sound different than anyone else's because it's you, not who doesn't usually do it. I would probably like it better because it would be different.
There's some bangers in the back catalog. I'd like to think there's some bangers in there.
Well, that's too bad. I'd love to pull one up now if you have one that we could check out.
I think what I would want to impart is that, like, do what you feel in the studio. If you are in a angry bang it out mood,
then do it.
Then by all means channel that and bang it out as hard as you possibly can. But if you're not feeling that way, honor that feeling and see where it takes you. But also, as you just said, John, like if you do super hard bangers all the time, it can also be useful, like just educational, maybe learn a new trick or two, trying occasionally to do something slightly different. And definitely. Just to reiterate, and for Peter, like, no way like saying there's anything wrong with hard banging techno. I'm saying it has its place, and I feel it loses some of its power when that's all that you hear, like, constantly. And that, for me, a little contrast goes a long way to bring some of that impact back into it. Definitely.
So we're back out of the studio here, back into our, like, I don't know what world we're in with this crazy visuals going on here. I've just been looking back at the chat. We're at the halfway point. Of course, we're 343 TV, Selway Techno Saturdays. I'm here with Noah Pred, and we're just listening to music and hanging out and talking and seeing what happens. That's sort of what's going on. So hopefully everybody's good to go along with us for the ride. And let's check out the chat here. Seth. Oh, he's another regular. Nice to have you back. Seth says that hardcore industrial techno is nice to sleep to.
Well, there is that.
Hey, I got to tell you, like, I was going through my SoundCloud stream this week, and I subscribe to all sorts of different stuff. I don't even know. I follow so many different artists, and half of them I forget after like a year, right? And someone posted a really blisteringly dark, distorted hardcore techno, and like not like gabber bang and rave hardcore, like serious like art dark techno, but like brutal and just industrial noise and rhythm, and it just sounded like you were trapped in an alien hellscape. But I was listening to it, I'm like, this is extreme. And I first skipped through it, like every track sounds the same. But then I put it on and listened to it at a lower volume and just listened. It did sound like a drone. It was like, it all just blends together. And in a way, as you can push things so hard that it starts to go in the opposite direction, and it starts to become like hypnotizing. And, but probably part of it is, there's not a lot of dynamic range and not a lot of contrast because everything's pushed, everything's compressed, and you're just getting this like with a pulse. And actually, I kind of liked it better like that, like turning it down and listening to it at a moderate level and just putting it on in the background. It became like a kind of weird, it was like listening to your air conditioner or a motor running, but more interesting.
I have heard some really, really like almost psychedelic gabber hardcore where it's like 4 to the floor kick drums, 200 BPM. They're distorted, which adds those harmonics.
Right.
And yeah, because they're closer together, it does take on a really drony, hypnotic quality. And it requires a shift in mindset where it's like, okay, I'm not trying to parse these as though they were 140 BPM kick drums. This is a different thing. And once you kind of shift into that different mindset, you can, kind of interact with it in a different way, I guess.
It has a lot to do with it. Your state of mind when you hear this different kind of music and how you alter your state of mind, definitely. Your perception is a lot with a lot of styles of music. So let's see. C2 Running asks, and this is a big question really, but so much to organize. How do I grab tech, music, engineering, and put it in a workflow? And I mean, okay, before we answer, that's why 343 Labs exists. to spin this into like a plug for what we do. That's why we're here, doing these streams, doing the classes, doing the workshops, doing the events. Why we have a Discord server, which, if you haven't joined yet, there are links below in the description. Our website, if you're interested in learning more about our classes and things like that. C2 Running, we're here to help you put it all together. So, if you're thinking about signing up for a course, or, checking out one of our pro sessions, if you haven't entered the giveaway, do it now before it's too late. And I thought that was a good opportunity to just, let you guys know that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. And, Noah and I are hanging out here listening to music and theorizing and giving our opinions and hanging out, and we're lost in this trippy world behind me here. But underneath that is like, we're music educators, and we want to share what we know with you. So thanks for being here, and thanks for asking that question. And all right, so back to what he's asking. How does he put all this, technology and learning about the music and audio engineering and et cetera? Like how do we start to put that together when we're just getting going?
Yeah, it's funny to look at it as these kind of atomized or siloed processes, because the way I learned everything, it was all kind of part of one process. And I guess when you get to a certain level of comfort with it, it feels like one process. It gets segmented, of course, but there's some time management, and mixing is separate from the creative time block or whatever. But it's an excellent question, and there are a variety of approaches, and it's one of the most important things is developing your workflow. And I remember reading an interview many, many, many years ago with the one and only Kari Lekabush, and he talked about, on average, in any given year at the time, he was producing 50 tracks, which sounds like a lot, but if it's your full-time job, that's like one a week, which isn't insane. But he said at the end of any given year, only roughly 10 of those would really like stand out and mean something to him. But by going through the process of doing those other 40, each time he would learn a new technique or figure out how to connect. Oh, if I do this effect through here, that's amazing. And then all those little techniques and tricks discovered through producing all the tracks would eventually feed into and inform and play a role in the 10 keepers or whatever. And in doing that, also inevitably refining the workflow. And so it's kind of like chicken and the egg, and maybe sounds like hollow advice, but just finish tracks. Just go through the whole process, see them through start to finish. Don't worry about them being perfect. But every time you get through that process, you get more comfortable with that process and develop and refine that process. And it gets easier and easier the more you go.
Definitely. Wise words. And I'm just still keeping my eye on the chat here. And also, keeping my eye out for our mutual friend. We have a surprise. Well, not so much of a surprise because we already talked about him, but Tim Xavier is waiting in the wings, ready to join. And I'm glad he's here because it just, it's making it into a party. And also we can talk a little bit about what you guys do together with Manifest Audio. And so bear with me while I get our technical situation sorted out here. I'm adding Tim to the scene. There he is. And let's open this up so we can see the both of you. You guys get to see me use my OBS
What's up, Tim?
Skills here. So,
hey, Noah, how are you?
I'm good, man. You?
I'm great. I'm good. I just got home from work.
Long day at the cutting factory?
Yeah, no, it was a good day.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Tim Xavier is a mastering engineer. He has a company, Man-Made Mastering, and they do a lot of work doing a really excellent job at mastering and cutting vinyl. And actually, I just was chatting with Tim earlier today that we want to do like a mastering for techno episode, and maybe he can even set up a camera and show us what he does and sort of demystify a little bit of it. That's up to him if he wants to try and do that.
No. We can totally do that. In fact, when you contacted me earlier today, like my first thought was like, I'm really busy, shit. And then the second thought was like, well, wait a minute, because if I'm like over the lathe and doing stuff, and I thought if I have my phone here, you could just dip in and it would be kind of interesting. But yeah, man, I just bared the cold. I mean, it's like, I don't know, 20 Fahrenheit outside. Like, just got home. And I heard what you guys were talking about, and I just wanted to chime in, if that's cool. I have kind of a deja vu approach to my track making, and I did something interesting last night where, like, I just worked on a tune, no matter, like, I just muscled through the sequence. Now, when I open that, like, 20 days from now, I'm gonna finish it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, I remember when Jeff Mills used to say, like, oh, I make, like, 18 sketches in whatever, 20 minutes. It's true. I mean, it's nice to, like, run through sketches. I think a lot of artists, we get attached to a certain sound or a certain idea, and we think that the professional way to execute that tune is to, evolve it and develop it and pick at it for 3 months, and that's not the way I work.
Got it.
What's that music I hear?
Well, that's what we've been checking out Noah's work, and I just was putting this on in the background. I think it's kind of nice. Actually, I want to ask everybody out there, since my setup was a little bit different today, how's the volume level when we're all talking over the music? I have it low now, but
I start to look around to see if my phone is playing music. So maybe just a little bit louder because,
Can you hear it? It's blippy bleepy electro. This is one of my other favorite tracks off of the album. And I think Noah every now and then dabbles in some like proper electro. So I like your.
I've been known to dabble.
Yeah,
I've been known to dabble in those realms.
I'm kind of the same. I mean, I love electro, like real electro, not electro house, not all that EDM stuff that people call electro. That's not what we're talking about. And I did an episode on exploring the rhythms and beats of electro and electro funk, like where it comes from. Like the beats that inspired Kraftwerk, for example, and like where did Planet Rock get the beats from? So we talked about the history with Jason Sostek and did a little drum programming and a little bit of sound design, just
nice.
Looking at electro drums. But music, I love this kind of syncopated stuff.
Yeah,
and then when you combine it with other genres, also it can work so well.
Right. I agree. Yeah, no, this one is using some of the generative tools that we're going to release in a few months quite heavily. It's got a sequencer that is set to just evolve very slightly, generating the bass line and the lead. Right. And they can both be transposed by incoming MIDI input, either playing keyboard live or from MIDI clips. And so I've got both of those and the pads sort of transposing together. So you got all these diverse musical elements that are all kind of adhering to the contours of that overall MIDI input transposition.
Yeah, listening to it, I hear that like this one melodically and rhythmically is more generative than the other tracks.
Oh yeah,
you're letting it wander a bit more.
Yeah, I had aspirations to do a lot more editing on this one, and then when it was all coming together for release, I was just like, you know what? I think it's good. It's an experiment, and I wanted to share it as such. And I think, yeah, here it is.
And it worked. It came out great, and it's got a bit. It's like a bit electro, and it also has a bit of like the '90s early warp, early IDM vibe to it as well.
Totally.
But those totally go
John.
together. I mean, if you listen to the earliest Autechre, it's like electro with different melody,
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely got that vibe.
Cool. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, we should
collaborate, no?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I think there's.
Yeah, you should.
I think this could be the start of a.
Well, one thing I want to do. Did you guys check out? I'm going to fade this out because I'm going to open up another live session in a second here. But did you guys see the thing I did about Ninjam and syncing online? It's like basically what Speedy J's doing for his live streams. Like,
right.
How does he do that?
I know how he does that, and I did a video on it, so you should check it out.
But
I'm gonna invite you to do that.
I should watch more videos.
There you go.
On a similar tip, though, technologically speaking, have you had a chance to check out this Endless app that Tim Exile has put together?
I know about it. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, so it's cloud-based. It started as like a mobile app. Pretty great how it works. You can have private jams. You invite your friends, and there's like a chat, and you can just add layers and remix them with cool effects instantly and export the audio to whatever. But they recently just launched a VST plugin that runs in Live or any DAW. And so, yeah, it works beautifully. You can export all the clips to Live directly and run it in sync with your session. And so I did some collaboration recently with my friend Rick Deepchild in Australia, and I would we're in different time zones, but I would wake up in the morning and see like what loops he added and how he remixed with the effects or whatever. But then the other twist is they have these public jams you can join. And so you can go through all these public jams. They're happening in real time with a little chat window, and you're like, oh yeah, this is a cool little electro banger or whatever. I'm just gonna add a little. All right,
we're gonna have to do that. I'm gonna investigate that and probably show it here because I'm definitely interested in this real time collaboration while we can't all be together. It's really
like
important.
Perfect time for it, but even more than that, like I'm curious to see how it ends up getting moderated. And I guess it's inherently moderated by the fact there's like a price of entry with the plugin, like it's not free.
Right.
Although that iOS app might be. But anyway, it gave me that like Web 1.0 feeling of like there can be a utopia on the internet. Everyone just having fun and like doing things that are good and positive and just like jamming with strangers. Like it's a total trip. So
it's similar in vibe to what Ninjam has been already. Like Ninjam it's been more like instrumental players and people who play in bands. So like a guitar and a bass and a keyboard and a drum set. And they all, but they're all in different parts of the world and they join a server and they're able to play together in time. It's similar to that, but then it's definitely more electronic oriented, considering that it's coming from Tim Exile. That totally makes sense. So I'm going to check that out. That sounds
put it
right
on
up
your list.
My street.
It's really well designed too. There's like a slight learning curve but once you grok the layout, it's pretty intuitive.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out. I've loaded up a little project here in Live, and let's switch to the other screen. I'm going to have to adjust. Oh no, there you are. Perfect. It kept Tim. I thought I was going to have to do my OBS magic again. Didn't you like how you just flew around there? I'm having so much fun nerding out with OBS and learning how to do all the cool tricks the game streamers do. It's great. So
looks professional, man.
That's what we want. We want to be fun and pro. So this was kind of, I loaded this up. I was going to put on a more chill one earlier, but this is kind of in that electro with a little bit of funk kind of vibe.
Sounds like it's speeding up and slowing down.
Oh, you guys are hearing. See, the audio's not good for you guys today. We didn't get the stereo, non-compressed audio working for the call-in,
Sounds
unfortunately.
passable for me. I'm not noticing any issues on my end.
The stream should be hearing it nice and loud and clear. And actually, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. Just so we're not like... Because I think I want to make sure they hear you guys talking. And gosh, it's already 1:49. Remember when I said, Noah, that like it'll seem like it's taking forever to get going, and then before you know it, it's almost an hour, and like where did the time go? Doing streaming is a time warp, man. Definitely.
Time is relative, my friend.
Exactly.
Time is relative.
Thanks, Einstein. So we were talking a little bit about the generative stuff, and you know, this is one of those things, one of those devices from the Inspired by Nature that we went over, where we're using physics to generate rhythmic variation and melodic variation. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
So that whole funky bass line you're hearing is just those bouncing balls.
Right.
But it's
yeah. That's right. Yeah, the bouncy notes. That's one of the MIDI ones. Cool.
I just took the quantized into 64, so it sounds even more like what? Out of time
with
now.
With the portamento on the glide on the bass there.
Right. Yeah, doing the monophonic synth. You never hear, you know, even if the balls hit at the same time, you only hear one note, so they kind of fight each other. Pretty cool. Back to 16th notes. Now, the reason why I open this up is just you guys have a company together, Manifest Audio. Tell us a little bit about that.
True. Well, I mean, I don't know. Tim's a talented producer. We're old buddies from back in the olden times, and just kind of hatched a plan to put our heads together and start making some loop packs initially. And then I realized, hey, this could be a really good platform to share some of the racks I know how to build with my Abletonian expertise, and soon some of the Mac stuff too. So the toolkits.
That's what we're looking at.
That includes all the racks, which are mostly MIDI and audio effect racks, not doing too much of the instrument rack variety at this point. But
I'm going to put you on the spot. I've got this groove going.
All right.
And I know you can't hear it really, really well in terms of how good the mix is and how things are balanced, but let's say I cut it down to just this kind of trippy, dubby modulating chord, which is also, you know, this is this spectral sampling thing that was in that Inspired by Nature. And this also has some physics-inspired random modulation going on here. But I don't know, let's check out some of your effects. Can you think of a cool rack that I could try on this sound?
I was going to go for some of the weird stereo filters in the Toolkit 3, except I won't be able to hear them, and because it's mono for me, and that'll make me nervous as to whether it's working as intended or not.
You can trust me. If it sounds good, I'll let you know. And if it doesn't sound good, we'll try another one. That's fine. It's part of the process. Oh, awesome. I'm glad your link is working. So
like you could try
I like the name of this one, Crystal Dubs. I don't know if that's appropriate, but
try the Crystal Trills on there, maybe.
Crystal Trills.
It might get a little messy. It might help to have something with a little more space in it to hear the.
Oh no, that's good.
John, maybe you want to turn it up just
sure.
Just a hair. Yeah,
I turned it down so they could hear you talk, but it might be a little quieter for you and louder for the stream.
Got it.
So with Live 11, it'll be interesting because then I'm not restricted to 8 macro dials anymore. I've already been thinking about doing a series of like 1 or 2 macro dial racks, but this one has the 8 on it. And so first of all, like, the dub is kind of like I integrate that so that you can use it like a send and sort of throw to the effect and then turn it back down so it's still,
which is the way it should be. Doing dub effects to properly use should be on a return bus or another bus. Like doing dub delays with a dry wet, it doesn't quite work, doesn't quite sound right.
Thank you. I feel seen, John. I appreciate it.
We've got our feedback, so that's the number of echoes.
Yeah. So I believe there's some like I tuned the different pitch intervals. So by default, The pitch delay is going up an octave right now with every repeat of the echo.
That's right. That's this one, this pitch interval.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't sound like there's any pitch change when it's lower.
Oh, I'm definitely hearing a lower octave on the.
Oh, okay. I hear
Yeah.
it. But it doesn't sound too muddy. You must have something in there to like roll it off so it's not, because sometimes when you do that extreme like pitch octave down, like it can start to get muffled. So there must be something else in the chain that's cleaning it up. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see a variety of safety measures in place if you unfold the
Safety
rack,
measures. It's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good concept to talk about when mixing, because sometimes you put effects in there to like keep things in line. It's not necessarily about making it sound better. It's about reining in a range of frequencies or a dynamic range to kind of keep it like, because doing these extreme effects processing, things can get a little out of hand in terms of level. So even if you're just doing a creative effect, you still need to think about EQ and compression and things like that, or filtering, so that when you do extreme changes to modulate how the effect sounds, it doesn't go wacky and blow your mix up, right? So I think that sounds like what you're doing here a little bit.
Yeah, there's definitely that's all part of the Manifest Audio guarantee, my friend.
All of these racks are going to not blow your mix up.
They're all going to not.
Is that in
destroy
writing?
Speakers, yes.
And from Tim's point of view, from a mastering engineer's point of view, there's got to be like he's got a lot of pride about his quality of audio that comes out of his studio. Like he's not going to release any devices that don't sound good enough, right? Like they've got to be super polished. And it sounds like you got it.
I sure hope not.
I wonder how that sounds. Like if I was using this in the arrangement, I would definitely be automating the dub and like at certain parts of my arrangement, I'd bring that in and out to add that higher layer of those crystal trills, as you call them.
So the chance, what that is, that's a chance of the trills happening on the echo repetition. So you could reduce that and it might get a little less busy as well.
It's a little bit less bubbly sounding now. You still hear a little bit of that sparkle on top, but it's not like, you know?
Right. So you can play with the chance and...
higher chance.
There's a PDF manual for each of these toolkits that comes with a full explanation of what each macro corresponds to.
Hey, there was Claire. Yeah, I just wanted to point out the PDF here. There you go. So yeah, you've got good documentation. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's not super graphically rich, these editions, but the macros are listed 1 through 8 with a pretty solid description, I think, which is all you need for the racks. Sounds like somebody just turned on another Inspired by Nature device.
It's that tree thing.
Right? It sure sounds like it is.
Before we run out of time, let's try another effect. I want to hear another cool effect from your pack.
All right. I wish I could see your screen. It just like got super lossy and all the text is illegible.
I just blew it up
even
for you.
Zoomed in.
No,
it's not.
That's the internet.
It's not doing it.
Okay, meta mod verb, multi-crystal dubs, multi-ringer, ripple verb, wobble verb. I'm going to try one of these verbs. I'm going to try...
Okay, try the ripple verb on something where we will really hear the decay on it.
Well, I might work on this. I mean, this already... Oops. What just happened? Live 11 beta crashed. It's beta, guys. Things are going to happen. I have to say, when I first tried these Max for Live devices, this did happen. So I just want to point this out. Yeah, with the, they're still beta. We're cutting edge here. So I'll just point out that it wasn't the Manifest rack that made this crash.
Thank you. Yeah, I can attest that when you're playing with Mac stuff, when they're not completely finished yet, it can get a little hairy for sure.
Yeah, it's complicated stuff. So I feel for the programmers, the people who really know how to do Macs, because it's like my brain doesn't work in that direction. I'm definitely on the more intuitive side of technology and making music. Although I have ever since I started teaching for Dubspot, it's been almost 10 years now. I have learned so much about like mixing and sound design and synthesis. Like before it was always like a lot of you guys out there that haven't had training in this or didn't go to school for it. Like you open up an instrument, a plug-in or an effect, or you get a hardware synth and you're like, okay. And you just turn the knobs and that sounds cool. Okay, let's do that. And I didn't ever know like the details, like, you know, let's say about how FM synthesis work or granular synthesis works. Like I didn't really care when I started. It was just like, oh, that sounds cool. Do that. It was that simple. And I would say to everybody, I would say to everybody who's just getting started out there, like, and going back to, you know, the guy before was like, how do I put all this stuff together and learn about, you know, technology and the synths and everything? Like, remember that it's music and that you're playing.
Right.
You know,
this is key. This
Definitely.
is key.
And if even if you don't know exactly how it works, it doesn't matter. Just use your ears and play and listen to other people's music. And, you know, it can be helpful to learn how to listen critically. That's a big skill that I like to talk about in my synthesis and sound design courses. And what we start, it's one of the first things we do in the first class is like pick out some sounds that we like, that the students are into and like focusing on, and learn how to listen to them at a deeper level, not just that's a cool bass, how do I do that? But like, why is it cool? What are the elements of sound? What are the details? What in that sound is changing? And what of those things then do we have control over when we're making music with a synth or in our DAW or whatever? So anyway, another little segue, you know, to talk a little bit about what we do at 343. Of course, you know, Noah teaches Ableton Live in synthesis and sound design. We for 343, as do I. And you know, we're out here trying to again share what we know and grow the community. I want to invite everybody to check out our Discord if you haven't already. Come in there. You know, you don't have to be a student, but if you're interested in what we do, come check out the conversations that are happening. You know, meet like-minded producers, get feedback on your tracks. We do regular feedback sessions, and of course, we keep checking out our streams. Subscribe if you haven't. Follow if you haven't. Give us a reaction, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Everybody in the chat, hope you had a fun time. And anyway, Noah, Tim, thanks so much for being here today. It's been a really nice time. I've enjoyed sort of chatting, and we went from deep nerding out to, you know, just sort of getting into playing and being playful with these cool rack devices you guys have released through Manifest Audio. And yeah, that's it for today. Before we go.
Oh yeah, no, I just want to implore people, listeners or viewers, to check out manifest.audio is our URL.
Definitely.
Not manifest.com, manifest.audio.
I just put that in the chat. That is a URL. It's not .audio.com or whatever. It's manifest.audio. You guys thought you were being all clever with that cool domain, and now people are like, I can't find your site.
You can also find our sample packs on Splice.
Oh, nice. That's right. You also have the sample packs, which are awesome. Yeah. So
a lot of good material there.
Did I see? We have to announce the winner. Congratulations to this week's giveaway winner, John H. Kingston III. He has been a regular for months now, so he absolutely is deserving. Congratulations. Really glad that you got to win this week, and we will get in touch with you about what's the word? I don't know. Redeeming, getting your prize, and so you can hook up with and check out one of these pro sessions we have coming up. So, all right, again, thanks everybody. Thanks to my guests, my friends, my techno friends, Noah, Pred, and Tim Xavier. And Tim, we're definitely going to have you back to do the mastering thing. That is a must.
It'll be my pleasure. All
right, guys, stick around. We'll come back on Monday for Claire, for tips and tricks with Daltrick, and I'll see you next time. Adios.
Thanks, John. And yeah, my website, if anyone's curious about any of the tunes we were checking out.
I'm just failing with the social media and the links.
Where's your
You guys are
promo,
interrupting
man?
me. Go ahead.
Well, you're doing a great job with the 343 stuff. I admire and appreciate. I got to jump in.
We're all still learning.
The easiest thing is just go to my website. It's my name, noahpred.com. And the album, if you click the little BC Bandcamp logo there, it should take you. I mean, it might show you the newer ambient one by default, but Arcologies is the stuff we were listening to in live there. So thanks, John. Thanks for having us. It's been great.
Sure. And you know what I'm going to do to make up for my forgetting to call out your album and everything is we are going to put the links to these things in the description so you guys can check it out there, and that will take care of it. And all right, so thanks again, guys. I've got to get going, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Adios.
Bye.